Well, good afternoon, everybody. On this June 9th, I am somewhere southwest of Price, Utah currently, heading back into the San Rafael swell. But I figured that before I do that, I could stop here and talk a bit about this crazy salt desert habitat we got here on these really harsh soils derived from the Mancos Shale formation. That's a Cretaceous formation of marine sediment that was known for its eroding to this really fine, powdery, clay-like soil. It's quite alkaline. Got a high concentration of like calcium carbonate and other salts that make for a very unpleasant growing experience for most plants. But a few do very well out here, and perhaps most notably is this one, which seems to be everywhere. This is Atriplex confertifolia, also known as Shadscale. A common shrub on salt desert areas all over the place. It is a member of Amarantaceae, of course, and I was a little bit confused as to whether or not I was seeing this species in some of my last videos, but this time I'm positive. It's got thorns. Well, these ones don't, but some of them do. I should take it back. It does got the thorns that are so classic of it. It's got the classic leaf shape. It's got everything. And it's very, very common out here. It is doing so well. And another shrub I'm seeing very commonly out here is this one, which I'm positive is Tetradymia spinosa. This is actually a member of Asteraceae. It looks like it's something dead, that's only because it is currently dropping its leaves, which it's known for doing. It is very drought deciduous, and it's also quite spiny, hence spinosa. Now, Tetradymias are interesting because they are known for being toxic to livestock, so a lot of livestock have gotten hurt by eating this one. I think mainly the Tetradymia canescens, but the whole genus is, well, I think except for the canescens, you seem to find everywhere. Very much a big fan of growing on these types of soils and in other salt desert habitats. And of course, I'm seeing lots of Opuntia polyacantha out here with their beautiful pink and pale yellow flowers. And there's almost nothing nicer out here, I think. Of course, there's polyacantha. What exactly is polyacantha is a bit of a difficult question to answer. There's many species that have been included within it in the past, or in Opuntia arenacea, and sometimes been merged together. Sometimes have been split into many, many species. I'm kind of a bit of a splitter, so I'm not opposed to that at all, but as of right now, everything's a little bit tricky. We're seeing some Plantago patagonica out here. Was that a species of Lappula? I can't remember what the native Lappula is, but I think that might be it. But either way, it's the native plantain you find growing, and not plantain like the kind you eat, but as in Plantago, Plantagenaceae, that you see growing in the desert here. Now it's normally, I think, a riparian genus, or at least one that likes wet sites, but this one's really very well adapted to this drought, and it's got these very silvery leaves and this sort of downy covering on it to help cope with this harsh habitat. It can get quite hot out here, though it is 6,000 feet in elevation, so maybe not too hot, but it is certainly very dry, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get less than 10 inches on average of precipitation, or about 25 centimeters a year or less for you metrically inclined folk. But let's carry on. Another classic cactus species of Utah, this is Echinocereus triglochidiatus. It's my hand for comparison. I don't want to get too close though, of course. Some ways you can tell apart from other cactuses. One, it's really clump growing habit. A lot of cactus have this, but not in the state of Utah really. And the way it produces flowers that sort of come from the side of the plant, they don't come out from the top, where the apical meristem is and the main growing stem. They just produce flowers from the side, which you can see a spent version of right there. Really cool plants. I think they actually produce pretty beautiful red flowers. Certainly, they might actually be a lot more beautiful than that of Opuntia polyacantha. So I'll give a point to them for that. It's fine to be the worst soil in the world, but it's certainly pretty harsh, and the vegetation definitely reflects it. Like even the Shadscale seems to be struggling a little bit, as I pointed out. But I said it's a classic Mancos Shale stuff. Of course, Opuntia polyacantha can also produce these very bright yellow flowers as well. See here. Oh man, I gotta turn the ISO down, or turn the frame rate up. Shutter speed up, I mean. There we go. How nice is that? Really hard to get these settings right when the soil's so bright too, I'll add. Hope this isn't a throwaway video. Of course, it wouldn't be a salt desert without a good helping of Sarcobatus vermiculatus, also known as Greasewood. One of the only two species in Sarcobataceae. The other one is also a member of the genus Sarcobatus. A very thorny plant, one of the most salt tolerant and like alkaline soil, sort of, in the sort of gradient between sagebrush into salt desert and the playa. Definitely one of the most tolerant of the more playa-like conditions species you get out here, though I really should clarify that if this is a salt desert, it's not like most of the ones in the Great Basin where it's sort of because of the endorheic habitat that salts, like not just regular salt, but calcium carbonate, some gypsum, and just general fine clay sediments build up at the bottoms of valleys, leading to increasingly harsh conditions over time. This area is not endorheic. I mean, there's not many rivers for stuff to drain out through, but it's really the rock formation that has led to these conditions. The rock formation, the soil here has formed from, as I said before, is the Mancos Shale. It's a sediment associated with rock formation associated with the western interior seaway. Yeah, it was existed during most of the Cretaceous period, cut North America right into, and as I said before, it led to some really interesting biogeography of the dinosaurs, like tyrannosaurids evolved into different species and families on either side of the divide. So eastern North America has some different relatives of Tyrannosaurus that were the top predator, but that's really outside the point. Lots of interesting sediments have been formed from the western interior seaway, which I think got up to like 3,000 feet deep. Quite deep, all things considered. Oh, look, you got a Eriocoma hymonoides. I saw a few of these earlier, but glad I got an opportunity to talk about it now. There's Indian rice grass, just growing amongst this, what looks like it might be dead sagebrush. I'm seeing a little bit of sagebrush too. I mean, it could also just be whatever. Oh, we got a little bit of a Juniperus osteosperma thriving out here. This tree, along with Pinus edulis, the two-needle pinion, can also handle some pretty tough conditions occasionally. Doubt this area will turn to pinyon juniper though, even if you left it alone for a long time. It suppressed all the fire and overgrazed everything. Now, unfortunately, we are getting some Elaeagnus angustifolia here, which does tell me there might be some groundwater that is able to tap its roots into, or perhaps that water used to flow through here at one point. So it got established, sent its roots down, and as the water receded, became less available, it was still able to tap into that deep groundwater. Because these things usually do need some water to survive. They can grow in arid areas, but it's usually at least along washes, if not outright rivers and stuff. But it is an invasive weed, so I'm not too happy to see that here. What are these grasses? I'm not good enough at grasses to figure these out, but it does look interesting. It looks like it's spreading outward, forming this ring here. I gotta get more into grasses. I saw some Hilaria jamesii, which I'll hopefully get a chance to talk to again, or talk about again, but also talk to, because I like talking to these plants. Sort of that way. So I found this sclerocactus out here on the way to the trees, and I'm just not sure what species it is. It looks a little bit like Sclerocactus rhydiae, except it seems like it might have a little bit too few central spines per aerial. It's only got one on each aerial that sticks straight out. It's got the hook on it, obviously. It's either white in color. Can't see much other characteristics about it, but it's not really matching any species I'm aware of, and I'm not too good at the sclerocactus, so I apologize for that, or really the cactus in general. I'm trying to learn more. And this is a really interesting one, so hopefully I can figure out what it is later. I mean, there's a chance it could be rhydiae again, which it looks like. So we continue heading over to the trees. There's a lot more Sarcobatus vermiculatus on the landscape. It now seems to be the dominant shrub. And although we're still getting some of that Atriplex confertifolia, I'm seeing a lot more of this, I believe is Artemisia arbuscula. I don't know for sure. That's what it seems to match the description of the most. It's got similar leaves, but also has similar leaves to Artemisia tridentata, which I don't think you'd see growing out here. I mean, I've seen a few of them, but so it's either probably a low variety of Artemisia tridentata or Artemisia arbuscula, which is I think also called the low sagebrush. But the trees are almost there, and I'm excited to see them. Anything else growing in that sort of wash area? I mean, that's really what you'd expect from that place. More wash vegetation. This area just drains into the Price River. Maybe some washes that go directly into the San Rafael swell. There's a better specimen at Plantago patagonica, by the way. Yeah, I might have to reshoot that early clip, which even if you see this, won't make any sense. Either way, there we go. Of course, those trees in the distance are Populus fremontii, the Fremont cottonwood. I forgot for a second there's any other special name to it. Very common, great tree in the Colorado Plateau and other parts of the desert southwest. Yeah, it's definitely a nice wash here. Obviously some willows too. I am very bad at willows, so God help me. It's probably just coyote willow or sandbar willow. Oh, is that a dock? What the heck? Not a dock, I mean a burdock, Arctium. Whereas dock and burdock are not related to each other. One's in Polygonaceae, that's a dock, and burdock's of course in Asteraceae. It's actually a type of thistle, but there we go. Glad I found this place. Well, speaking of thistles, that could be a native one, but I don't know. I wonder if we get some of the Uinta Basin flora here, because I mean the Uinta Basin endemics, because in the Uinta Basin there's a lot of interesting things going on. Surprising number of endemic plants and the like. So yeah, these, of course, Populus fremontii is just like the Elaeagnus angustifolia that I was mentioning earlier, is a riparian tree species. So it needs this kind of habitat to grow. It needs access to deep water. Sometimes it can send its roots really far down once it's established and the water recedes as water source goes away, but it has access to deep groundwater. It will continue to thrive. You can sometimes see it growing on deep dunes in a few places. And this willow is probably just Salix exigua. Sandbar or coyote willow. Ah, crap, we got the tamarisk. Not sure what species, and I'm not too interested in learning. You know, I'd like to see, just like Joey said there, I might like to see all these invasive species in their natural habitat, but they're just kind of depressing to see here. Look at these rushes. Yeah, I got some rushes too, some Juncus species that I'm definitely not going to be able to figure out. Riparian habitat is always fantastic. A lifeline for many species out here. But I think I'm going to take this as a cue to head back to the car. Okay, so this grass I was talking about earlier, based upon its inflorescence, I think might be Spirobolus aeroides or Cryptandrus, alkali cicadin or sand drop seed respectively. I think I'm going to go with aeroides though, because it definitely seems like a place that's more alkaline, has more alkaline specialists than like sandy area specialists. So I could see both of them growing out here for sure. Wow, that got dark. Well, now I'm just a little bit confused. I figure both of these plants are probably Shadscale, but they look so different from each other, and there's no reason why they should be growing differently. This one's a lot pokier, got smaller leaves, and very bluish. This one's greenish, still a little bit pokey. They still got some thorns, but they're almost non-existent relative to that one. Oh, I guess you got a few up here. Maybe they are both Shadscale. Interesting. And you know, it'd be impossible to talk about this landscape without talking about one of the most prominent plants you'll find out here. The Great American Pumpjack, or Oil Donkey, or whatever you want to call it. See these things fairly commonly in this region because this is the heart of Utah's oil and gas industry, or really just fossil fuel industry in general. There's a lot of coal beds out here as well. This is the only one I've actually seen active, however, because I think most of them are, I don't know, maybe they're just running dry. Oh, look at this. It's a nice salmon-colored flower on a Opuntia polyacantha. But either way, these things are what you use. If you guys didn't know this, when oil no longer gushes out of the ground, like the pressure of the gravity is no longer enough to push the oil out of the ground, that's first you can pump water into the ground, but eventually it's going to start diluting the oil that comes up with it. So at a certain point you need to expend electricity and use one of these guys to pull the oil out of the ground. But yeah, a lot of them are idle. I know this whole area, like a Casa Valley up to Price, does not, I think it's called the Casa Valley at least, where I'm heading into, is not exactly it doesn't exactly seem like a very economically prosperous area. I know Utah's oil and gas and just general fossil fuel industry is not doing so well for the most part, which I'm not going to comment on. But I do know for a fact that I think Price especially, the coal industry has been dried up for decades, and it's been dwindling for decades. And the shale oil bust was pretty hard on the area as well. Only about 10 miles down the road now. I was looking for another salt desert site, so I talked about more salt desert plants and identified this area previously. But now that I'm here, I actually didn't see all that salt desert. I'm getting a few of the same plants as before, such as the Atriplex canescens. That is consistent with what I've been seeing here, but I'm seeing a lot less of the other salt desert plants. So I'm guessing this is, the soil here is still maybe alkali, maybe still got a few dissolved salts, but it's a lot less harsh and, well, just salt desert. It's a lower end of a salt desert continuum, and there definitely is a salt desert continuum. You better believe that. What I'm actually seeing a lot more out here, and I think actually is kind of a salt desert plant, so I can say that one more time, but not always, is this guy. This is Echinocereus lanata. One more time, Echinocereus lanata, also known as winterfat. Echinocereus. If you guys just want to call it winterfat, that's fine. It's probably one of the trickiest scientific names. But either way, it's blue like this, very downy. It's a member of Amaranthaceae, like so many other great plants you find in the salt deserts and just regular deserts and other waste sites sort of like this. I don't know if I call this fully a waste site, but it's well, it's a lot more cobbly here. That's one thing I'm noticing about the soil. Less there's a fine power, a lot more rocks in here, which probably helps some other plants get a foothold. But yeah, very common. I imagine it's a good forage for some animals, if it's called winterfat. And I think this is more of the Hilaria jamesii, which I was trying to talk about earlier, but didn't really see any good specimens. I just never filmed them. I was at the other area. But let's see if I can find anything else interesting here. Probably not a whole lot of other salt desert stuff, that's for sure. Got a whole lot of that winterfat out here, but not that much of other interesting things to talk about, unfortunately. I guess I'll just try climbing to the top of that hill and then head back afterwards, see if I find anything interesting on the way. This is definitely salt desert type habitat, but I'm not seeing any more species right now, so maybe let's use this as an opportunity to talk more about that salt desert continuum I was going on about. It's just a concept I came up with, but I think I'm not wrong when I talk about this. But basically, like the general characteristics of a salt desert, the things that make a salt desert, yeah, I'm not just talking about the vegetation, but like the adaptive conditions that lead to these places. It's just on sort of continuum, like soil can be more or less alkali, can have more or less salt dissolved in it. It can be more or less made of this very fine powdery stuff, and the more of those features are intensified, the more specialized the plant life is going to have to be to grow there. Of course, they always exist in at least semi-arid, usually arid areas. Actually, it can be fairly common in semi-arid places, but really anything more semi-arid, like more rainfall than that, you're just not going to survive. It's just going to, all those sediments are going to be washed away. Any basin they form in is going to be filled up with water until it overflows somewhere, just creating a lake. Man, it is so windy. I hope you don't hear this, but so you get places that are mildly like a salt desert. You might even get like big sagebrush growing and thriving there just fine. You get areas that are moderately salt desert, starting more at Shadscale, forming saltbrush, Greasewood to exclusion of others. And eventually you might get so salt deserty that no plants at all can survive. Wow. I really hope the wind isn't being picked up at this microphone right now. It is very bad right now. But anyways, that's my target. But anyhow, there's also different climates that salt deserts exist in. I know I said it has to be arid or semi-arid, but they can exist in very cold deserts or very hot deserts, from temperate areas to tropical ones even. It really kind of depends on where you are. If in North America, at least, for instance, out here, I say we're solidly in a cold desert, but in the Mojave Desert, it gets a lot less cold, so different species might thrive in the salt desert areas. It's also a lot drier there, so it might be even harsher in other ways. Get down to Baja, it can be even more dry, but the temperatures are moderate, and you got that, sea breeze kind of fog going on, which can moderate it. I might even say moderate it. Man, this wind's really throwing me off right now. But all these factors come together and help characterize which vegetation you'll be finding at an individual place. And salt desert also occurs in central Mexico, of course, but it barely gets down to freezing there, but it might not necessarily be super hot because it's so high in elevation. So that can also have an effect on what plants you'll find growing in the more salt desert-like areas. And of course, you have to then factor in natural history and what species evolved over time in place to take advantage of these kinds of habitats. So I hope this clip came out all right. This wind is really, really unpleasant, but I'm getting close to the top. I can get out of here and hopefully the swell will be less windy. This is very steep. Just glad the rocks aren't slipping too bad. That's Huntington down there. You can see the power plant. I'm a bit underwhelmed now that I'm actually at the top of this place. You know, I think that's it for this video. I just gotta find a way back down unless I see something else cool. Or maybe tomorrow find other good salt desert areas. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe learned a thing or two. See you around. And just to finish off the video here, well actually I'm gonna be honest, this is before I filmed anything, but I'm putting it at the back of the video. I'm gonna go and collect all these cans that some young people here, perhaps working in the oil industry, have left behind for, I don't know, all the nice animals to make use of. Very thoughtful of them, but I'm gonna actually get rid of them now because that's obviously BS. Oh, Red Bull, something not alcoholic. Yeah, not sure. I remember reading some article where someone was saying how, you know, also local kind of places complain about people from out of state, or at least out of town, coming in and littering everywhere. But that this lady at the gas station said, you know, all the people coming with like their Patagonia shirts and stuff like that, they're the ones who always come back with bags of cans full of, I think full of bush cans, but never actually buy bush at her gas station. So yeah, that's all I got to say to that. But there's a few more of these I want to get and hopefully recycle where they belong later.